Hey, everybody. So, a few disclaimers here. I'm broadcasting today from a hotel while my family is asleep on vacation, and there is actual business being conducted in the hotel business center. So, hopefully, the lobby music and escalator noise isn't going to be too much. It won't overwhelm the microphone here. This is also a brand new laptop, new setup. I don't know how this mic is going to go, what the quality of the camera is, or how good the crappy hotel Wi-Fi is going to be. So, with that being said, we're going to go ahead here today and talk about my experience with BGG Con this past weekend. Was an absolute blast, but to also explain sort of the strange comparison in the title, most of my convention background comes from helping run the tabletop department at PAX, having gone to PAX through media jobs and just for fun for many, many years prior to that. I really don't ever hit Origins or Gen Con or any other major tabletop conventions. So this is really going to be my kind of personal take here on, how my favorite convention compares to this other convention I happen to go to and have a blast at. So for the other, two people in the world who really overlap in that sort of way, hey, this is your video. Congrats. Let me take a quick look at my notes here and see kind of what I want to hit. There's a couple things to say about the registration process and actually getting on site for BGGCon. This is where the biggest difference I really noticed was in the sense that one thing I love about going to PAX is they mail you the badges, you get it, you put it on your neck, you show up, and you have a great time. BGG Con seemed to have the whole typical hotel con experience, or even big Gen Con type experience of wait in the giant line, get a badge just to get your badge that you paid for a long time ago. They put a wristband on you for the entire weekend that you're not allowed to take off, even though you have a badge that you wear around your neck. It's really weird, and I don't quite understand the whole thing, but that was sort of like the low point of the convention, which was showing up and getting the badge and all that. And then it just got better from there. So really, I'm not going to harp on the negativity of registration. The convention space itself, it's really doing it kind of a disservice to call it a hotel con, because it is. I mean, it's in the Hyatt at Dallas Fort Worth Airport. You really never leave the airport, essentially. You spit out of the parking garage, you're in the convention already. But this convention had way, way more space and was better organized than any of the other, hotel conventions I've been to. And I've been to quite a few in the local, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, tri-state area. For one thing, it wasn't hyper scheduled. That's really typically my knock with a hotel convention, is that you have to send in, hey, I want to play in these 8 games, and if I can't play in that game, here's my second choice and my third choice, and oh crap, now this one went long, but I'm scheduled to play in a game at 3 p.m., and the whole thing just falls apart. We may be gamers and nerds, and the stereotypical thing is, oh, we're afraid to talk to people, but that's not board gamers. I'm much happier just walking through an open floor and saying, hey, can I jump in that game? Or, hey, who wants to play this game? I just read the rules, so let's get it set up. I don't really need the hyper-scheduled convention. I always felt it did a disservice. Going to a hyper-scheduled convention, I'd show up, and by the end of the day, I said, why did I only play 4 games today? I could have just invited my friends over, and we would have banged out game after game after game. So it kind of defeated the purpose for taking that time out of my life to play board games. If I'm going to do that, I do it at home, or I go to an open show where I can really maximize my time, like a BGG or like a PAX. They're both great. And as far as hotel cons go, BGG had a ton of space. The show floor itself, the main ballroom, if you will, very, very big, but there always seemed to be like 1 or 2 empty tables. So even that wasn't a problem. I guess part of the reason they had so much space, from what I hear, me being the first time attendee, some of the areas that were open for gaming were indeed new this year. So What was really neat was room 25 on every single floor was just an unlocked room with a couple tables filled out. I'd say it was 8 tables in a miniature conference room. Anyone could just walk in and play board games if they felt like it. There also was an entire row of rooms on the 11th floor that was for the same purpose. And, you know, I heard the term scheduled boardroom, or at least I saw it in the forums when I was going to learn about BGG because I was registering. Like I said, BGG isn't hyper scheduled, but attendees do have the option to submit an item to an official schedule. There was really only a handful of them, and they did tend to be things that you want to, you know, get commitment from your players because this is a long game and I don't want to run it if people aren't going to show up. But when they say you schedule a boardroom, it's like you get an actual boardroom, like a corporate boardroom that they would use for a big corporate meeting. So, you know, big 10-foot solid wood oval-shaped table. So it's like, hey, this is a pretty awesome experience to go in and set up your giant game of Twilight Imperium that's going to take all day. And we're going to play it in a cool room with, you know, water jug and a big-ass table that, you know, isn't going to impede the experience at all. It's also a long show in the sense that since it's in a hotel, I mean, you could pretty much play games 24 hours a day. And there weren't a whole lot of tournaments. The focus here was not on competitive play. It was more of checking out the hot games. It's not even really focus of a show that has people purchasing a lot of games, although that certainly does happen. What else? Let me see if there's a chat here, if anyone's chiming in with stuff. I'll talk about the game library for a little bit, because that's one aspect of PAX I have a lot of involvement with. The library at BGG is extremely smooth, and the selection is gigantic. There's over 4,000 games sitting in that library, and what's unique about it is there's only one copy of every game. And this sort of speaks to the different crowds that attend both conventions. BGG is your hardcore alpha gamer, early adopters, influential type people, whereas some of those people do attend PAX, but it is more so the fresh blood of the hobby. This is people who probably coming in from the video game side that heard tabletop games are cool. They probably have, you know, 1 or 2 friends who are pushing them to play more board games, so they tend to check it out at PAX. So the library at PAX is, you know, 8 copies of Power Grid and 6 copies of Puerto Rico and, you know, 15 copies of Settlers of Catan. With a lot of the deeper stuff backing it up with 1 or 2 copies each. BGG is 1 copy of every game you've ever heard of or anyone could possibly want to play at the convention, including stuff that just came out or stuff that is, you know, worth hundreds of dollars because it's super rare and out of print, and the copy sitting on that shelf actually happens to be in pretty damn good condition. It's a miracle they don't just have stuff walking out the door, which is a testament to the people who show up at Board Game Geek Con. Everyone was super well behaved in the sense that nobody caused any trouble, and also in the sense that, you know, it needs to be said, there weren't any weirdos. There's no convention smelly guy that I had to pass. It was just a convention of, it was an older crowd. I'd say people in their 30s, but this was not an ancient guy con or a weird guy con by any stretch of the means. This was normal people who play board games who you would be happy to sit down at a table with, every single one of them. There were some other neat things about the library. They implemented a QR code system. So you could scan the game alert QR code with your phone, and that allowed you to type in the name of the game they have in the library, provide your contact information, and when they scan that game, I would actually send you an alert letting you know, hey, not guaranteed this is still going to be here by the time you meander over to the library, but hey, we just got it back in. You want to check it out? Come take a look. Going back to how everyone was so well behaved, I did a small shift. I volunteered in the library just to check out how they run things. Uh, I sat there for a moment when I had finished a task and I wasn't sure what to do next. And I realized there's no game return task. Everyone was taking these games back, having them scanned to be checked in, and then they were all politely walking up to the shelves and neatly stacking the game back in the proper alphabetical place where it was supposed to go. No, throwing it in the pile or handing it to the guy who just scanned it and saying, "Hey, you put this back. I'm gonna go get my next game." So that was really interesting to see. And there's no collateral either. There's no, handing over your driver's license. They've got the barcode printed on your badge already. So they take the scanner, scan your badge, scan the game, you're out the door. They do, however, have a time limit on the board game rentals. Hot games are limited to 4 hours, and average games are limited to 8 hours. And they will get on the PA system and call you out by name if you do not have the game back in time. The only other area where they actually have some leniency is when they close at 1 a.m. They don't mind if you keep the game out overnight. It's practically expected that you're not going to have your last game back. They just want you to bring it back in the morning when you happen to be done. What else here? Let's see. Hello. And what else do we have? I think that's just about it for the library type stuff. Going on to the actual hall of the convention floor here, what I really thought was neat about BGG was that they have people there specifically to teach you games. One of the things that drew me in to attend this convention was the presence of the hot games area. I'd say it was 20 or 30 tables set up, which are their purpose is supposed to be to take games that are brand new or mostly import titles from Essen that haven't quite reached U.S. distribution yet. It's voted on by the BGG community, so it can be hit or miss to some extent. But generally, they're all going to be some of the biggest and most anticipated titles. They have them all permanently set up there, convention-owned copies, and the volunteers for the area are ostensibly going to have read most of the rule books, so they can assist you in learning the games as you sit down. Also, because people are pretty much running the circuit of learning the hot games, if you grab one of the very, very helpful teacher wanted flags, pop it down on your table, if you don't get a convention volunteer, you will get a helpful convention con goer to come by and teach you the game. They'll probably want to play it with you too. So that was very neat to actually see that it would be easy to learn new games, because that's sort of one of my pet peeves about board gaming is that you run into a lot of people who don't want to read the rule book and sort of just want the game taught to them. So if it's not going to be you, it might be hard to get a game together. So it can't always be you, especially when it's 20 brand new games. It does pay to have a little bit of help there in that regard. Personally, I was able to play a good number of the games in that hot games area, and it was really cool to get to see some of the new stuff. Sometimes you kind of feel like you're falling behind the curves of the tabletop industry with how fast new releases are coming out, hundreds of games a year, and how quickly people seem to move on from one game to the next. Also, having all the games set up for a dexterity area was really cool. I mean, they just had maybe 20 or so tables permanently set up with all sorts of really, really obscure dexterity games. There's a lot of, soccer games and like magnetic games that you have to control by putting magnets underneath the various pawns. They had an oversized version of Via Paletti, which is always a favorite. What else do we have going on here? You can drink booze at Board Game Geek Con. It's not a problem. There's bars within the hotel. You can, bring in whatever you want. Going to PAX East and PAX South, I can tell you that, they serve alcohol in the convention center, but it's within a specific area, and you're really not supposed to bring it down into the open gaming area. a couple people do, and we typically have to tell them, hey, either keep it extremely discreet or get out of here, because it's not really within what we're allowed to be doing. Not a problem within the hotel at Board Game Geek. At least I can tell from their policies. There's quite a few people who are actively boozing it up as they play their board games. So if that's your thing, you're not going to get a weird look at BGG Con. Let's see. Con is also pretty long. I mean, Wednesday to Sunday is a pretty long convention stretch, but interestingly enough, it ends very early on Sunday. At least 1 or 2 p.m. the whole thing shuts down. So Sunday, I guess I see people showing up on Wednesday morning. They don't expect you to be going full steam into Sunday. It really is just a getaway day. That's pretty much all I have to say in comparing the two events. I'll probably try to make it back to Board Game Geek Con next year and hopefully years to follow. I think it's going to be a really good complement to PAX South and or PAX East for me, being that I feel like they represent two different spectrums of the hobby. Like I said, the hardcore early adopter crowd versus the fresh blood, lifeblood of the hobby crowd. And I have a lot of other reasons for enjoying PAX as well, being that it is sort of a omni geek convention beyond just the tabletop department, which I love and is so dear to my heart. There was at least one moment early on at Board Game Geek Con where, the group I was playing a game with, we disbanded after, 10:30 p.m. on Thursday night or so, first night I was there. And as I was walking around by myself looking for another group to get on with, I kind of wondered, hey, why am I having this feeling? I actually never feel this at PAX. I'm either hopping from one group to the next, or I have something I really, really personally want to go see or do. And I realized, oh yeah, I would be going to see a concert right now. Immediately, if I wind up falling without a group on a Friday or Saturday at PAX, I'm going to see MC Frontalot concert or Anna Menaguchi. When you have some of your favorite bands are also going to one of your favorite gaming conventions, that really helps, gives you something to do. So I would not knock Board Game Geek Con as a convention to attend by yourself. I did go by myself this year. I knew plenty of people there, and I had some work to do as well. I was doing some outreach to try to recruit exhibitors for PAX. I was also working on a freelance writing assignment for The Escapist. So I had sort of tasks to keep me going, and I was able to hop from group to group pretty well. But even if I didn't have any of that, I wouldn't feel intimidated or scared or weirded out by going to BGG by myself. People really respect those players wanted flags. I mean, if you want to get a game together, you could just put one up and people are going to sit down and play with you, because everyone has an impression that, we're all good here. No one's going to be, offensive to the other people or rub them the wrong way in any extremely outward manner. So you could get a group together, and hell, you might wind up sticking with them for the whole weekend. BGG is like any other convention. PAX, I'd say the same way, but I'd say you actually probably would be a bit more isolated over the course of the weekend at PAX, because there is so much to see or do. The groups would probably want to go see and do all the different things, which might not necessarily line up with you. And it's not quite as easy to fall into a random pickup game at a PAX, being that I think it's more common for people to roll in with large packs of friends at that type of convention. That being said, just a really exciting weekend. Got to meet a lot of people, back from my more active writing and blogging days and reviewing days that I actually hadn't gotten to meet in person, simply because I do tend to run a different convention circuit than most people who are very active in that area. I go to a lot of trade shows, like the Toy Fair every year, which means I've met pretty much all the publishers and all their PR people, and even a lot of designers that they sign, they'll bring them along. So, I know all those people, I've met them all, but I don't know a lot of the handful of publishers who don't hit, say, a PAX or a toy fair. And I definitely don't know, other people who are very active in board game media. So it was really neat to get to actually put names to faces to some of those other guys, other people with YouTube channels and prominent reviewers who I've talked a lot with on Twitter, but we've never had an opportunity to bump into each other before. So hey, I got to meet a lot of people, play games with, pseudo familiar avatars and usernames. Always nice to make the internet a real person. So that being said, I'm gonna go hit the hay, get some good sleep. I got a vacation that's beginning here, as I mentioned at the beginning of this broadcast. Hope you guys like some of the insight into what Board Game Geek is like, how it might compare to a larger multi-genre convention. And maybe we'll do this whole streaming thing again if this worked out. All right, have a good one.